see what the worst our opponent can muster here is. Otherwise, they're going to be facing down a 6/6 Trampler in Old Border. How about that? Hello and welcome, guys. Today, we are being Sakura-Tribe sellouts, as the thumbnail of this video says, of course. Today, we're selling out to corporate Amulet Titan geniuses like F-Paulus, House of Mana, Yusamonitz. These guys all say Sakura-Tribe Scout is just straight up better than Grazer. And in case you're not familiar with the card in question, I'll read it, but you probably should be familiar with it if you're watching Amulet content at this point. So 1 mana 1/1 that taps to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So, of course, you can't use this ability as soon as it comes into play. It would be summoning sick, of course, but the turn after you play Scout, it gives you an additional land drop, and the turn after that, if it's still alive, you can continue to make land drops with Scout, as opposed to Grazer, which is a 1 mana 0/3 reach. When it enters the battlefield, put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So this is going to give you an instantaneous ramp and a 0/3 blocker that can even block creatures with flying. However, you're only going to get 1 bit of ramp out of this, and if you have watched my recent How to Play Amulet video for beginners, I talk about the fact that Arboreal Grazer only enables a turn 5 Titan, turn 4 with Brig, whereas Sakura-Tribe Scout, assuming that it lives the whole time, can enable a turn 4 Titan just naturally, or with Brig, a turn 3 Titan. If you want to check that out, then I'm sure there are resources available to you, like the links in the description below, where you can get access to some of my introductory Amulet content. But, yeah, for that reason by itself, Scout is said to be better on its own. It's better in mulligans, where you can keep a hand of a couple lands, Scout, and a Titan, and still have a route to turn 3 Titan via Brig, of course. And, the downside to playing Scout, of course, is that if it dies immediately, you get no land ramp value out of it whatsoever. So if your opponent casts a Fatal Push, or a Lightning Bolt, or a Lava Dart, or a Renin 6- on your Scout, all of these things will stop you from even netting a land drop at all. And that's one of the downsides of the card, as Grazer, even if they kill it after it's come into play, it'll already have put a land onto the battlefield for you, and that's kind of the appeal of Grazer, of course. There are also lines where you can Summoner's Pact for a Grazer to get an additional 1 mana to play a Titan and things like that. They do come up on occasion. And we do see 1 copy of Grazer in the main, as well as 2 copies of Grazer in the sideboard. That's because Grazer is going to be better against those red aggressive decks where the 0/3 blocker is exceedingly relevant. And we're also going to be able to bring in Arboreal Grazer against those matchups where Scout would be bad against the Renin 6s of the world and the Jund mid-range decks, for example. I could see boarding out Scout and bringing in Grazers in matchups like those. But of course, Scout is going to be much better when your opponent's not interacting with it. It's going to enable Titan a little bit better than Grazer on average. And especially against opponents who are not willing to interact with your Scout, such as blue-white control, Scout kind of goes nuts, just letting you put in lands whenever you want to, even at instant speed. So you can flash in that Bojuka Bog in order to turn off your opponent's Snapcaster Mage targets. And bringing ourselves to this Bojuka Bog has reminded me, we got a couple of Old Border cards here. We see the Old Border Bog. We got these Old Border Primeval Titans. I did spend a few ticks just to upgrade my Titans and Rex Sage, of course, into the Old Border ones. And I'm also playing some Old Border basic lands. I usually like to rock the full arts. In fact, I like to rock the snow-covered basics, but we've got some Old Border, just a nice, high-quality forced art and Old Border here for us to kick out this league. Yeah, not rocking the Old Border's Dismembers, because this is the art that I prefer. I like this art for the Dismember, not the promo art. So if they had printed these Dismembers in Old Border, then I probably would have picked them up, but not worth it at the moment. Yeah, one other thing I should say before I dive into the league here is this list is based off of a list by House of Mana MTG, of course. This is the list that went 4-0 in a recent Modern Preliminary. We do see the main board Grazer plus sideboard Grazer tech. We see a lot of the same things going on here. The only differences between my list and House's list, we have cut 1 copy of Turntimber Symbiosis, as this is a card that I've not been impressed with as of late. And instead, we're playing the 3rd Tolaria West, as I have found that we need more Tolaria West as of recently to be able to chain Titans and use our last Titan to set up a Dryad. I've been lacking on Tolaria West, and even I found myself not wanting to board out more than 1 Summoner's Pact due to the fact that they're just so common to target now. With the Field of Dead gone and many grindy decks in the format, we want to be able to get as many Summoners Packs and Tolaria Wests as possible. And the other change is that I cut one copy of Castle Garenbrig in order to fit in a second fetch land. One thing that I've been conscious about with my deck list is having enough untapped green sources on turn 1 to play our Grazers and Scouts. And in fact, I actually have a list over here that both for Hanweir and for Stronghold that have 14 untapped green sources on turn 1, cutting some other lands, and that's very experimental. But I've been trying to be cognizant of the number of untapped sources we have for playing our 1-drops on turn 1. And so with that in mind, I cut one Garenbrig because in multiples they can be quite clunky. And I've added one copy of Windswept Heath. And in the sideboard, we do still see our Pact Negation and Explosives to transmute with the Tolaria West, especially with the inclusion of the third Tolaria West. I think that this package is going to be quite impactful. No copy of Emrakul or Kozilek. Kozilek I played in the past because I wanted a bomb against control, but hopefully we can ride Tracker to victory against our control opponents here. And to be honest, I'm not going to play a card in the sideboard that's mainly there to give us a matchup against Mill. I just don't think it's worth it. Mill is one deck, and I'm not playing around Mill. In fact, I've even been able to steal games and matches against Mill in the past just by sideboarding in a bunch of cards and just trying to get aggressive. So, and if we lose the Mill matchup, that's fine. I'm just accepting that as a loss. And instead, we have copies of Force of Vigor to beat Blood Moon. We have these Grazers for our aggressive red matchups. We have a Pact Negation against Storm and Tron. Those types of decks where you need a 0-mana interactive spell to bridge the gap between your Titan resolving and you winning. And a couple of Dismembers, of course, for the Heliod matchup. You know, just some standard stuff. This is kind of the sideboard that I would usually play with some Grazers in addition, since we're not playing them in the main. I can't bring myself not to play them, of course. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this main deck. I will see you guys in Game 1. Also, I will say I'm doing a bit of dog sitting during this league here, so if there's some extra background noise, I apologize, but it is kind of unavoidable at the time. We'll definitely play first, playing against Gracchus. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And we have our first turn 1 Scout hand. We can go turn 1 Scout, and if it dies, it's no big deal. We'll just play turn 3 Azusa. We even have Tolaria West to potentially transmute for a Titan, so I do think we keep this. Turn 1 Scout into turn 3 Azusa should be a turn 4 Titan pretty easy. If we top deck a Garenbrig, the Scout by itself represents a turn 3 Titan, so... Although we don't have the... Oh, we do have the Forest, so... I mean, obviously we're fetching out a land here. Should we be shocking Breeding Pool to pay for the Tolaria West, or should we be getting a basic Forest? It's an interesting question. I feel like it's probably worth it to get the Breeding Pool, but... that is what I'm going to go for. Just making sure we have blue sources here for our transmuting, of course. See what our opponent is on. Inspiring Vantage. Ooh, Burn, perhaps? This would be a matchup for a Grazer for sure. We see a Bolt on our Scout, which, depending on what our opponent's playing, not really a big deal at all. We'll play the T-West out here. Pass it back. Next turn, we can play a Bounce Land and Explore. No need to put an Azusa into play just yet, as with a bunch of triggers going on in the stack anyways, we'll likely just be losing our Azusa. I suppose we could have played Growth Chamber and then shocked in Breeding Pool a second time to play Azusa and play Valcut into a land just to get full value, but with this Explorer to fill the gaps, I think it's probably fine. And if we top deck an untapped source, we can just play Azusa anyways. Explorer will get us closer to our Titan as well, so... And of course, we're playing the Tolaria West here over the Valcut because we're trying to be cognizant of the double blue, transmute this Tolaria West. Say, for example, we float the blue, pick it up with a Sanctuary or Growth Chamber, and then immediately transmute it. Opponent is playing Fanatical Firebrand, a 1-mana 1/1 with haste that can tap and sacrifice to do 1 damage to any target. And Goblin Bushwhacker. Alright. So our opponent is doing some bushwhacking shenanigans over here. Possibly even on red-white goblins. I don't really find that likely. And we do top deck the untapped source to play Azusa here if we want. Azusa land sets us up for a turn 4 Titan, so it's probably going to be the choice over the Explorer, just because we can top deck and get lucky. And if not, we have Explorer to fill the gaps again, so we'll play the Azusa. Playing the land with no trigger first, to make sure our opponent can't kill our Azusa with like a gut shot or something. Not that they would be realistically playing that. And we'll play our Growth Chamber to pick up the Forest here. Untap Forest and a Titan this upcoming turn if we top deck a Pact or a Titan. And barring that, we'll use this Explorer, maybe transmute Tolaria West. We'll just see what comes to us. I could definitely see Explore and then Transmuting Tolarios being our upcoming turn, assuming this Azusa just dies. Which I think is a fairly safe assumption, in all honesty. To be honest, I might even just put this Azusa in front of something to block, as it's already done its job, getting the lands into play, so might as well take a free block. If our opponent has something to kill Azusa, then we don't really care, to be honest. Like, if they were just to attack with a Bushwhacker, I might even just block it and let them Firebrand our Azusa away, trade our Azusa for their board. Oh, they Goblin Grenade away the Azusa. To be honest, like I said, I'm totally fine with that. Alright, untap source. So we can float the blue here and explore. Oh, there's our Titan. Interesting. Sadly, we are one land drop, or 1 mana short of casting Titan by going Forest, Titan. We would only have 5 mana, so I guess we are just transmuting regardless. Let's float here. We'll pick it up with the Sanctuary. We'll play a Forest. I suppose we could transmute for a Radiant Fountain and play it. I don't really see the reason to do that, though. I'm just going to play the Forest, transmute for a Summoner's Pact, and pass it back. See what the worst our opponent can muster here is. Otherwise, they're going to be facing down a 6/6 Trampler in Old Border. How about that? Couple Radiant Fountain triggers should clear this up a bit. And definitely glad our opponent's using their bolts and grenades to kill not Primeval Titan. There's a Bushwhacker. Just hard casted. Wouldn't it have been better to... Oh, they can't surge it. Alright, well, anyways. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we could play Forest, and our Titan searches for Crumbling Vestige and like a bounce land, and then we could pack for a Dryad, and then get a Valcut trigger after playing Dryad here, and that doesn't seem too bad. And then we even have a backup Summoner's Pact if something happens to our Titan, so let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus Vestige would be 9. Using 6 to cast Titan is 3. Yeah, so I think we can manage to do all of that. Is it better to just haste and attack with a Titan, though? I feel like that's probably better, right? We play the Titan, leaving white floating with these... No, wait. We would have to get... Oh, we could play the Forest. We play Forest, tap 2 Forests, Growth Chamber, use 1 from the Sanctuary and the Breeding Pool. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Leave white-red floating. Oh, we wouldn't have an extra land drop. I guess we can't haste here. Alright, I guess Valcutting away one of their creatures like the Bushwhacker is probably the best choice, so... It doesn't really matter what mana we float here, so... Let's, go ahead and pact. Get our Dryad. Play our Titan. We'll search for Crumbling Vestige. And a bounce land, say the Simic. We will float a green with the Vestige. And pick up the Simic. Play Dryad. Growth Chamber to shoot away this 2/1 right here. Always yes, always yield. Pick up the Growth Chamber. Pass it back. We're done. We even have double force to play around a crazy Blood Moon from our opponent here, so... We're pretty locked up here, I would think. I don't think our opponent can kill us from 12, even with the 2 damage they have direct on board here. Loyalist. Can't be blocked by creature tokens. Don't really mind that. It's a good thing we killed one of our opponent's creatures as we get to double block here. So, let's take this Loyalist out of play, and the... one of the Firebrands, I suppose. Sure. We're taking 4. We don't lose the game, and then we win the game. And our opponent has seen it. Alright, so we're going to want explosives in this matchup, I do think. Grazers are obviously insane in this matchup, so we bring those in. Reclamation Sage for the possible Blood Moon our opponent could have. Maybe even 1 Force. I don't think I like bringing in the second Force until we actually see the Blood Moon, but anyways. Scouts are probably okay. If our opponent's wasting Firebrands and, you know, removal spells, bolts and stuff to kill our scouts, I'm actually pretty okay with that because our life total is probably more important. We can trim a pact, get rid of this dead Bog and this dead Ghost Quarter. Colony Garden does seem relevant. Cavernous Souls is not really, although it does play these 1-drops on turn 1, actually, so I'm going to keep it. Garen Rig is probably fine. Explore's a little slow. Yeah, I think we just call it there. We have all of the 1-mana ramp pieces that we could ask for. And we have a hand with the turn 3 Titan here. We'll keep. We get to play turn 1 Amulet. Oh, wait, we don't have a bounce land. What am I saying? It's not a turn 3 Titan, but it's still a good hand. If we top deck bounce land, there we go. It's a turn 3 Titan. And I'm going to go ahead and fetch out a basic forest here to play around Blood Moon. Amulet into play. Pass it back. Turn 2, we'll play Gruul Turf. Float 3 mana, play Dryad. Play Forest after picking up the Gruul Turf to its own trigger. And then we'll have, on turn 3, Gruul Turf again. That's 4 mana, plus the 2 in play. It's Titan mana. So, yeah, this Gruul Turf was a fantastic top deck. Grim Lavamancer. Don't really care about that one that much. We'll take our 2 damage. Seems reasonable. There's a Scout. We can actually play that one as well after we play our Forest here, so that we can guarantee our Titan mana even if our Dryad dies. So that's actually pretty awesome. Pick up the Gruul Turf here, of course. Do we fetch out a 3rd Forest, or is that just crazy? We even have the Breeding Pool in hand, so it's not like we can fetch for anything different, like to get double Amulet triggers off of like getting a Breeding Pool or something. So I actually think it's fine. We're taking 1 additional point of damage here, but I guess maybe we should have held it for extra Valakut triggers, but oh well. We have a pretty good setup here, so I'm not super concerned. We may need to worry about our opponent having Path to Exile, since they are splashing white. I'm not sure what they would be splashing white for. Path to Exile makes sense. We'll see if our opponent has one, if they're just going to throw it off now. This Scout was actually a fantastic top deck, though, because it lets us Titan this upcoming turn regardless of our Dryad getting removed here. Don't know if that means I want to block with the Dryad, however. We'll just see how the turn shapes up, because if we're not taking lethal damage, then there's really no reason to lose our Dryad. Valakut triggers just wiping our opponent's board almost solidifies that we can't lose the game. We could get, like, Valakut and Radiant Fountain, so they can't just, like, Goblin Grenade us. They bolt the Scout. I mean, you got me. Remember what I was saying about our opponent wasting bolts on these guys instead of our face? Yeah, I remember that too. Now, we probably cannot afford to block with the Dryad, though. Kind of a shame, but, you know what? We'll deal with it. So in order to actually get Valakut triggers here, we would have to haste our Titan and attack with it and play into Path. To be honest, I don't really think it's that bad if our opponent paths our Titan anyways. So, like, because they just have a board of 1/1s. I guess a Grim Lavamancer is kind of annoying, but I feel like hasting here. Or do I? Because that also doesn't set up Valakut, which is actually quite annoying. Let's leave the Gruul Turf in play. We're definitely casting Titan. See if they respond to the trigger. They don't. Okay. It feels like our opponent's F6'd here, because everything's snapping off, but I'm not sure if that's the case. They could be trying to get us. I feel like the safest play is to get T-West and, like, bounce land and transmute for Summoner's Pact. Think we're going to go with the safe play. What can I say? I'm a coward. No reason to lose to random nonsense here, so we'll get that Summoner's Pact. Pass it back to our opponent. Not attacking with Dryad, although we might be blocking now since the Dryad is probably irrelevant. Titan is definitely enough to take over this game on its own. Now, even if our opponent has Path for this, attack into and bolt Dryad, and we're left with just Amulet and lands in play, we can still just play Forest, Pack for Titan, and be just fine, so. Let's see if our opponent can beat it. I suppose they could have Blood Moon. That would be kind of annoying, although it's not like we have a pack to pay for, so it's not even the end of the world if they have Blood Moon. And that still doesn't answer Titan, so. They pass it back. Okay, okay. Well, we'll throw out a forest here, I suppose. We'll immediately go to combat. Present some Valakut triggers, I do believe. See if they have a path or a double bolt or something. Seems like they don't. Here comes the Titan. Again, not exposing Dryad. There's no real reason to. Just get Valakut and Valakut. And we'll just send everything upstairs. I don't care about your creatures. Take the damage. Just take it. Always yes, always yes, always yield, of course. What you got to say about this, opponent? Anything? If they have a path, then we can just pact for a Dryad and play another land and get 2 more Valakut triggers post-combat here to wipe their board. Seems decent. Or we could actually just play and pop explosives on 1 and wipe their board that way. And then have pact for Titan, play Titan afterwards. Or even pact for Titan, play Titan, get Bounce Land, Radiant Fountain, float the mana, play explosives on 1, and blow it up, all in this upcoming second main phase. So, I think we're pretty solid here. Our opponent's think tanking. They're paying costs. See what they are doing here. I wouldn't be surprised by Bolt plus Lavamancer activation. Octavation, yeah. Make this stack of... I can't make it any smaller than it is, but I want to be able to see the board. Deflecting Palm. Next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. What are they choosing here? Oh, I guess they don't choose until resolution. If they choose Valakut, this only prevents the next 3 damage. Like, we'd be taking 3. If they choose Titan, we'll be going to 5. So then I guess we'll be dead to Bolt plus Lavamancer activation. But barring that, I mean, they choose Valakut, so we're taking 3. And that's it. Okay. Blocks. That Deflecting Palm. Well, I guess that answers why our opponent's playing white, but, interesting. Let me know if you anticipated that one in the comments below. I did not. I also think our opponent should not have chosen Valakut. But, you know, it doesn't make a difference. We'll deal 5 damage to our opponent here. Yep. Land drop. Will not pay the life. Upstairs. Amulet. Anything? No? Okay. Well, we win the match, I guess. Well, that was interesting. And actually, despite the fact that our scouts just died on the spot there, that actually looked pretty good for Scout because absorbing those bolts is nice. Although I suppose Grazer could have done something similar while ramping us a land immediately. But anyways, let me know what you think about the Scout versus Grazer argument. And I will see you guys for the next match. This is Redface Menace, signing off.